My name is Tupavan. I'm 74 years old, and I want to tell you something that I have carried in my heart for a very long time. Something I learned not from a book or a teacher or a seminar room, but from a night so difficult, so stripped of everything I thought I controlled, that it left me with no choice but to turn towards something much older and much wiser than my own worried mind. I want to tell you about an ancient ritual, not ancient in the sense of inaccessible or complicated or reserved for people with special knowledge. Ancient in the sense that it has been practiced across cultures, across continents, across thousands of years of human experience, with the invisible laws that govern how abundance moves through a life. And I want to tell you about it honestly, as a woman who was skeptical, who was practical, who believed in effort and logic and the kind of results you can measure with numbers, and who discovered in one of the hardest periods of her life that there are dimensions of financial reality that effort and logic alone cannot reach. Let me start at the beginning. I was in my late 40s when everything in my financial life reached what I can only describe as a wall. Not a gradual slowing, not a gentle plateau, a wall. I had been building something for years, a small business, a careful savings practice, a disciplined approach to managing what came in and what went out. And then, in the space of one very difficult year, most of it unraveled. Not through my own carelessness, through circumstances that arrived without warning and left without apology. And I found myself standing in the rubble of what I had built, looking at the numbers, looking at the future, and feeling something I had never felt before with such completeness. I felt financially defeated, not just worried, not just stressed, defeated, as if the part of me that believed in building, in trying, in the possibility that effort would eventually be rewarded had been quietly extinguished. And in that state, in that hollow and exhausted state, I did something I had never done before. I stopped trying to fix it, just for one evening. I sat down on the floor of my small kitchen with my back against the wall, and I let myself be still. Not because I had given up, because I had run out of the kind of energy that pushes and plans and calculates. And in that stillness, something unexpected happened. I remembered my grandmother. I remembered watching her as a child, performing a ritual every evening before the sun went down. She would light a small candle. She would place a bowl of water nearby. She would hold a handful of uncooked rice in her palms, and she would speak over it in a voice so quiet I could never hear the words. Then she would place the rice at the entrance of the home, leave it overnight, and gather it in the morning to return it to the earth outside. I had watched this as a child and never thought to ask what it meant. It was simply something grandmother did, one of those unexplained adult rituals that children observe without understanding. But sitting on that kitchen floor, in the wreckage of my financial confidence, I remembered it with a clarity so sudden it almost startled me. And I felt, in a way that bypassed my rational mind entirely, that I needed to understand what she had been doing, what she had known that I had forgotten. I called my mother that same evening and asked her to tell me everything she remembered about what grandmother did and why. And what my mother told me over the next hour became the foundation of a practice that changed the direction of my financial life. The ritual my grandmother performed every evening was rooted in a belief that is common to ancient traditions across Asia, across Africa, across the indigenous practices of many parts of the world. The belief that abundance is not something you earn through effort alone. It is something you align with, something you invite, something you maintain a conscious, active, energetic relationship with every single day. And that relationship requires attention, intention, and the willingness to participate in the invisible as well as the visible dimensions of your financial life. Let me explain what this means in practical terms, because I think you deserve the practical truth and not just the poetic description. Every ancient tradition that has a relationship with prosperity understands one fundamental principle. Energy flows toward what is honored and away from what is ignored or taken for granted. This is true in relationships, it is true in health, and it is profoundly true in finances. Most of us have developed a deeply unconscious relationship with money and with abundance. We receive it without acknowledgement. We spend it without awareness. We worry about its absence without ever truly examining our relationship with its presence. And because we have never consciously honored the energy of abundance in our lives, that energy has no clear invitation to stay, to grow, to multiply. The ancient ritual that my grandmother practiced and that I began that night on my kitchen floor is essentially an act of conscious honoring, of creating each day a deliberate moment of acknowledgement and invitation directed toward the energy of abundance. What I do and what I want to share with you now is simple enough to do every evening and profound enough to shift something real in the way your life relates to prosperity. In the last hour before nightfall, I light a small candle. The candle represents the light that guides what you are calling toward you. It is not magic in itself. It is a physical act of intention, a way of telling your own subconscious mind and the field of energy around you that you are awake, you are present, and you are actively participating in your own abundance. I place a small bowl of clean water near the candle. Water, in virtually every ancient tradition connected to prosperity, represents flow, the movement of energy from one place to another, the willingness to receive and to release. Stagnant water represents stagnant energy. Fresh, clear water represents the kind of financial life you are building, one where abundance flows in freely and circulates with generosity, rather than collecting in anxiety and staying locked. I hold something in my hands that represents sustenance. My grandmother used rice because rice was the food of life in her world, the thing that nourished her family, the most fundamental form of provision she knew. You can use whatever holds that meaning for you. A handful of seeds, a few coins, a small piece of bread. something that in your own understanding represents the basic gift of being provided for. And I hold it in my hands and I speak over it. Not with desperation, not with the frantic energy of someone begging for rescue, but with the calm, grateful, forward-facing energy of someone who is acknowledging what has already been given and opening clearly to what is coming. I say in my own words something like this. I am grateful for what has flowed through my life today. I am grateful for the provision that has kept me and those I love. I am open to receiving more. I am ready to be a channel through which abundance flows, not only to me, but through me to others. Then I leave the candle burning safely for a while, sit in the quiet that the ritual creates, and allow myself to simply be present in the feeling of that intention. Every morning I clear the water and replace it with fresh. Every morning this small act renews the signal that I am maintaining. The signal that says, I am in conscious relationship with the energy of abundance. I honor it. I welcome it. I do not take it for granted. I want to tell you what happened when I began this practice, because honesty is more valuable than inspiration. The first thing that changed was not my bank balance. It was my inner state. Within days of beginning this ritual, I noticed that my relationship with financial anxiety began to shift. Not disappear, but shift. The anxiety was still present, but it no longer occupied the entire room of my awareness. There was now a small, steady corner of that room that felt different, calmer, more grounded, as if some part of me had remembered something important. And from that calmer place, I began to make different decisions. I reached out to someone I had been too defeated to contact. I revisited an idea I had abandoned. I said yes to something small that led to something larger. These were not miraculous events. They were the natural result of a mind that was slightly more open, slightly more capable of seeing possibility, because it was no longer completely submerged in the frequency of defeat. Within 3 months, the financial situation that had felt like a sealed room began to show openings. Not all at once, not without continued effort and difficulty, but the movement began, and the movement felt different from before. It felt like something that was happening with me rather than despite me. I believe that the ritual created that shift. Not because candles and water have supernatural powers, but because the daily act of conscious, intentional engagement with the energy of abundance gradually changed the frequency I was carrying. And the frequency I carry is the most powerful financial tool I possess, more powerful than any strategy, more powerful than any plan, more powerful than any amount of effort applied from a place of fear and defeat. There is something I want to address directly, because I know it might be sitting in your mind as you listen to me. The question of whether this is real. Whether an elderly woman lighting a candle and holding a handful of rice can truly have any connection to financial abundance. And my honest answer is this. I don't know exactly how it works. I am not a scientist. I am not a theologian. I am a woman who has lived 74 years, who has experienced financial difficulty and financial recovery, who has tried many approaches and paid close attention to what actually shifted things and what didn't. And what I can tell you from that lived experience is that the practices that changed my financial life most profoundly were not the external ones. They were the internal ones, the ones that changed my relationship with abundance, my belief in its availability, my willingness to receive it, my daily conscious participation in the energetic dimension of financial life that most people ignore entirely. The ancient ritual is powerful not because it is ancient. It is powerful because it requires you to stop, to be present, to acknowledge, to intend, to participate consciously in something that most people experience only unconsciously. And conscious participation changes outcomes, always, in every area of life. If you feel drawn to try this, I encourage you to create your own version. Let it reflect your own understanding, your own cultural background, your own relationship with the divine or the universe, or whatever you call the force larger than yourself that you sense is present in your life. The specific objects matter far less than the quality of presence and intention you bring to the act. What must be present is this: genuine gratitude for what you already have, genuine openness to receiving more, and the daily consistency that signals to your own deep mind that this is not a one-time experiment, but a sustained, sincere commitment to a different relationship with abundance. Consistency is the part that most people underestimate. One evening of ritual changes very little. 30 evenings of ritual, practiced with genuine presence, changes the grooves in your subconscious mind, changes the frequency you carry, changes what you notice, what you pursue, what you say yes to, and what you are willing to believe about what is available to you. Give it that time, give it that respect, and pay close attention to the subtle shifts that begin long before the obvious ones. If something in what I have shared today has resonated in a place deeper than the surface, I want to invite you to stay in this space. Come back whenever you need to be reminded of the deeper laws that govern financial life, the ones that exist beneath the strategies and the spreadsheets and the conventional advice. Subscribe and walk with me, because I have gathered these truths slowly over a lifetime of living with my eyes and my heart genuinely open, and I am not finished sharing them. Tonight, before the sun goes down, find 5 minutes, just 5. Light something small. Hold something that represents provision to you, and speak honestly in your own words to the energy of abundance that is always present and always listening. Not with desperation, with dignity, with the quiet authority of a person who has decided to stop ignoring the invisible half of their financial life. The ancient ones knew something we have forgotten. They knew that abundance is not only created in the marketplace and the workplace, it is cultivated in the quiet, daily, intentional moments when we remember to honor what we have and open clearly to what is coming. Remember that tonight and every night after, because this is how it has always worked, and it is still working now for everyone who is willing to participate.